Thank you for joining our session today. We are excited to share what we have been doing with educational technology and higher education. I am Dawn Liebernight, and I'm joined by Daniel Berg and Ellis Reeves. As coordinators and instructional designers at higher education institutions, we seek to better understand factors which influence student motivation and performance, especially in the online learning environment. And today we would like to share with you some of what we have learned in our journey. In an attempt to determine what makes instruction effective for teaching and learning, educational researchers have examined student motivation to identify concepts and instructional models which increase students' motivation and performance. Research has shown that learner motivation to participate in and continue with online learning programs is strongly affected by instructional design, and that motivation plays a crucial role in determining learner persistence, engagement, performance, and achievement. As our students navigate external factors such as professional and personal stressors, we ask ourselves, how can online learning experiences be designed to promote student engagement and motivation? One instructional strategy to consider is gamification through digital credentials. In order to investigate this topic further, we are proposing a quantitative study which examines the impact of digital credentials on student motivation and performance in an online higher education course for non-degree seeking students. Before designing our study, we examined the literature to better understand what impacts student motivation and performance. In the context of instructional design for computer-mediated environments, the ARCS model and the 6 C's of motivation have provided a framework for instructional strategies which increase students' motivation. The ARCS model claims that there are 4 steps for promoting and sustaining motivation in the learning process: attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction. And the 6 C's of motivation recommend instructional strategies to increase student motivation relating to choice, challenge, control, collaboration, constructing meaning, and consequences. These instructional design models were considered when implementing digital credentials in order to create a sense of satisfaction and confidence with the work completed. In addition, we have self-determination theory as our framework to examine student motivation. Self-determination theory reasons that each person has an intrinsic need to be self-governing, which is influenced by the environmental conditions which support autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Self-determination theory provides a framework for understanding motivation in adult learners, looking at amotivation, extrinsic motivation, and internal motivation. Amotivation is the state of lacking an attention to act resulting from not valuing an activity. Extrinsic motivation is construct that pertains to whenever an activity is done in order to attain some separable outcome. And then you have intrinsic motivation, which is defined as doing an activity for its inherent satisfaction rather than a separable consequence. As you can see in our figure, self-determination theory proposes that human motivation is a continuum ranging from amotivation to intrinsic motivation, with the different types of extrinsic motivation in between to represent the shifting degree of external and internal causality. We used this self-determination theory framework when designing our study, as Daniel will discuss next.
This proposed study aims to investigate the effect and impact that digital credentialing has on the performance of an online, non-degree seeking student in higher education. The proposed study will be conducted within a 5-week Fundamentals of Digital Accessibility course at a large medical university in the South, referred to as LMU. Digital accessibility has been selected as a topic of choice for this study due to its ever-present need and highlighted importance as a relevant necessity in the field of higher education, especially the subset of medical education. Course educational material covers methods on how to incorporate best practices into creating, editing, and revising accessible digital content. 3 20 to 25-minute modules are opened each week of the course and includes video, text, linked articles and resources, and interactive knowledge checks that participants will complete. The modules are Getting to Know Digital Accessibility, Introduction to Universal Design for Learning, Types of Disabilities and Assistive Technologies, Best Practices for General Formatting, Accessible Word Documents, Accessible PowerPoints, Accessible Excel Workbooks, accessible PDFs, Captions and Transcripts, Accessible Outlook Email, Accessibility in LMS, and Library Resources in an LMS. The LMS incorporated into this study is a branded learning management system consisting of Blackboard Open LMS technologies, as well as an outside digital open badge hosting platform. Participants for the study will consist of an intervention group and a control group of approximately 60 to 70 total participants, whom are LMU employees that have been randomly assigned to a group for the duration of the study. LMU employees have a required expectation from executive leadership to have digital accessibility content that they author to be fully digital accessible. As a result, participation in the Fundamentals of Digital Accessibility course is highly encouraged by leadership. Each group within the study will be managed by 3 course facilitators. Those 3 course facilitators will be responsible for unlocking modules at the beginning of each week, ensuring that educational content is available for both the control and intervention groups, and the creation and delivery of digital badges to the intervention group. As the proposed study progresses, course facilitators will score and evaluate participants using a control evaluation tool for digital accessibility preparedness. Digital accessibility will be assessed in compliance with WCAG 2.0 AA standards for structure and meaningful sequence, readability with the use of color, images, alternative text, PDF readability tagging, and contrast. Successfully editing and revising the provided source documentation to 80% accessibility will be considered attaining mastery of digital accessibility standards and requirements in line with WCAG 2A standards, and a certificate of completion will be awarded. Within the intervention group, the course facilitators will create digital badging that will be awarded at the conclusion of each module when performance is exemplary with meeting learning objectives. Digital badges, being a form of digital credentials, will be displayed through links within the LMS and a learner profile. Badges have been selected to create a currency that allows one to demonstrate and communicate value as a learner to onlookers, according to Rimlino-Raish. Additionally, elements of competition and challenge are incorporated in earning badging within the proposed study to connect elements of gamification to the intervention group. Social psychological studies on contributions in online communities or the motivation or uses of recommender systems arrived at conclusions that chime with core design properties of video games. Detterdine, who made that statement, also suggests that incorporating the core designs of video games into non-gaming context can directly benefit motivation, especially in a digital learning environment as outlined by the 6 C's approach of Turner and Paris, connecting to Keller's ARCS model by creating a sense of satisfaction and confidence with the work completed. At the conclusion of the proposed study, a final digital accessibility file will be converted to a digital accessibility state by participants and scored in line with WCAG standards by course facilitators. Successfully editing and revising the provided source documentation to 80% accessible will be considered attaining mastery of digital accessibility requirements in line with WCAG 2.0 AA standards. The final summative evaluation results will be recorded by course facilitators and be used to analyze in comparison to the control and intervention group. Additionally, a SIMS motivation scale will be distributed to each of the participants to measure qualitative results. Ellis will further evaluate those results in the next slide.
So now we're going to talk about our anticipated results. If this study were to be conducted, we would expect it to show a positive correlation between the use of digital credentials, specifically digital tokens, and the score earned after successfully editing and revising the provided source documentation. The anticipated final assessment score for the control group is 80%. This number is based on scores for the final assignment in which the course did not have digital tokens implemented into the courses. With the implementation of digital tokens based on the student's performance on the interactive knowledge checks each week, we expect to see an increase in intrinsic motivation along the SDT continuum for those in the intervention group, as shown in our median sum of SIM subscale scores graph. We also expect to see an increase in the final assessment score with the intervention group, with the score increasing to 85% because of the implementation of digital credentials, as shown in our final assessment grades graph. If digital tokens were to be implemented to the control group, we would expect to see a similar increase in the final assessment grade for this group. As for our conclusion, although research is limited with online higher education courses, different forms of gamifications used, like digital credentials, have shown to foster engagement and motivation to actively participate in course activities. The proposed study will examine the impact of digital credentials on student motivation and performance in an online higher education course for non-degree seeking students. Results are expected to show a positive correlation between the use of digital credentials and student motivation. And the use of gamification and rewards is an instructional strategy which can be used to increase student motivation across multiple platforms and performance by creating a tokens economy that will further drive outcomes to earn currency within that system. So now we are going to see what questions we would potentially have from people if the study were to be conducted. So let's start with the first question towards Dawn. Do you think this study would translate well to a study conducted on degree-seeking students rather than university employees? Is there different motivational levels between the two groups, students, employees?
Yes, the research shows that gamification in a variety of educational settings can foster engagement and motivation to actively participate in course activities. However, gamification as an instructional strategy should be carefully considered so it is more meaningful to the students, not limiting the system to extrinsic rewards. And rewards should be delivered contingent on performance. If implemented appropriately, the use of gamification and rewards, such as digital credentials, is an instructional strategy, which can be used to increase student motivation and performance.
Thank you, Dawn. Our next question that we propose we would have would be, are digital credentials widely accessible? Do you think they would be functional, reasonable to implement into an online course? And Daniel will answer this one.
Yes, absolutely. In today's age, digital credentials are incredibly accessible to learners. The IMS Global Learning Consortium is the authoritative figure on digital credentials and shares that digital credentials promise to make education more relevant by documenting learning in a way that empowers people to plan, track, and share their accomplishments in a secure and verifiable way. As a result of this, digital credentials are often issued by most major universities and institutions. Digital credentials can be found outside of the education mainstay of traditional classes and courses and can be found in MOOCs, which are massive online open courses, as well as many Fortune 500 companies like Microsoft, IBM, and Google. And for the second part, are digital credentials reasonable to implement from an implementational standpoint? Absolutely. There would be minimal work to incorporate digital badges, a form of digital credentials, into an online course. Course directors would simply need to make themselves familiar with the technologies by reading IMS Global Learning Consortium resources, selecting a badge platform that will integrate well with their learning management system and their online delivery method. And once they have a badge system, all they would have to do is set requirements needed to earn the badge, design a sprite to represent the badge, and then upload these to the host site, and then they can begin to award those badges to learners immediately.
Thank you, Daniel. Our last question I'll answer, is there an expectation that participants' age may impact their ability to score 80% in the control group or an 85% in the intervention group? Is there that expectation? Absolutely. I believe that is a common misconception that older adults do not want to use or cannot use technology, and that would be assumed in this case. However, we should not be looking at the individual's age, but rather their usage rate of technology and their skill associated with the technology. The study could have several older individuals, all who work with technology on a regular basis and will perform well on this assessment. With that being said, should the study be conducted, I believe the anticipated impact that age would play in an individual's ability to score the 80% to 85% would be minimal, because all individuals participating in the study are university employees and should all have a basic understanding of the technology or technology in general. So those are some of the questions that we expect to come up from this study if it were to be conducted. And this is our overall proposal. Thank you for watching and have a fantastic day.